His passer rating in 2020 was 119.
Okay.
And his
So,
passer rating in 21 was 117.
oh my goodness. So, because, okay, 119, I have to keep hitting the show more button to show me more. There he is. So, Petrus, he was at 119. Why don't I see him at 119? Anyway, I was just trying to get a beat on. And do you have his touchdown to interception ratio?
I do. Let me see here.
It was about 1-1, wasn't it?
Yeah, 10-9.
10-9.
And let's go ahead and give you Alex, because Alex played enough. I think the sample size is um, sufficient for this conversation. Now, the one disadvantage he had was he didn't get to pad any of those stats against, the likes of a Kent State. So his passer rating for 21 was a 99.1. 99.1, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He threw for 49%.
There are a few quarterbacks in the country that in this day and age do not have well over a 1-to-1 ratio of touchdowns to interceptions. Also, the 57% completion percentage is well below acceptable standing. And I've got him, I see Petrus at 117, but anyway, rather 117 or 119, whatever it is. That again is, unfortunately, ESPN doesn't number the statistical ranking, so you can't go over and say he's 47th in this. You'd have to do the actual count. Well, the count is like, yeah, it was not a successful season, that's for sure, from a passing standpoint.
And so, yeah, the bottom line is, you brought up evaluating a team, and I know we've talked about this before, but evaluating a team, if we're going to solely base that on wins and losses, then I guess, yeah, the offense is passable. Then the offense is really good, right? Because if we're just basing it on wins and losses. But I speak for a lot of fans, I think, and when I say fans are not, the idea that the grass isn't always greener, like I hear this all the time out of people. They say it about a coaching change, like Kirk steps down tomorrow, we could end up being the next Illinois or the next Rutgers. People say that all the time. I don't believe that's the case. I mean, I'm not saying it's impossible to have a bad hire, but, and I'm not going to give Iowa basketball fans a history lesson here because I'm 26 years old, but like, a bad hire took place when Iowa hired Todd Licklider. He was here for 3 years, and they bounced right back out of it with Fran McCaffrey. And before that, tell me the last time Iowa basketball had a bad coach. I mean, Iowa's had pretty much sustained success, whether you want to say it's not good enough or not. But we're talking NCAA tournament caliber teams: Alford, McCaffrey, Lute. Certainly Coach Dr. Tom Davis. And I could say almost the same about football. I know football's got a bit of there was a period of time that before the pre-Hayden years that Iowa football really struggled, as you know, Mark. But I do believe that Iowa, this was brought up the other day to me as well, that Iowa is one of the few markets where you don't have a pro sports team. And so, Nebraska's in a weird predicament where they have that same situation, and yet they can't seem to get out of their own way. And I think I would like to think they're the exception to the rule. I do believe Iowa's a special place. Facilities-wise, Iowa's right there with the rest of them now. I know there's still going to be some disadvantages, but that mentality that, well, the grass isn't always greener, we could end up being Rutgers, or, we don't go to the portal because maybe the next quarterback is worse, and that's going to make a bunch of guys leave. I am tired of that mentality, Mark. I'm tired of hearing that. I think that's just an apologist way of thinking. I think it's a loser's mentality to think, quite frankly. That's just how I feel. And I've said it before, Mark. I've also brought up Fran McCaffrey, kind of comparing his philosophies recruiting wise to Kirk. That's one of the reasons, for anybody who doesn't understand, why I still really have faith in Fran McCaffrey, even though he's not been to a Sweet 16 since he's gotten here, and he's been here 12 years. And I know that's frustrating, and he needs to get there. But I appreciate the fact that he's willing to swing for the fences, specifically in the transfer portal, because I happen to know he doesn't love the portal. And I think there's a lot of coaches who feel that way. I know Dabble Sweeney hates the portal, right? But if you're going to succeed in 2022, you're probably going to have to use that portal, unless you're Dabo or Nick Saban, and I know Nick Saban uses it. But if you're not able, in fact, they just got a really highly touted offensive lineman at Vanderbilt today. But if you're not going to use the portal, you're going to fall behind. And it is frustrating because not just quarterback, Mark, but given the struggles offensively, it's not just quarterback, but given the struggles offensively, Iowa has gotten one guy out of the portal this offseason, and he's set to be the third string tight end this fall. That's all they've done in the portal. They've gotten one guy who's going to be a third string tight end. Look, I just that doesn't inspire a lot of confidence in the offense, in my opinion. Mark, you relate to how I'm feeling on this?
I think that Kirk has a formula, and again, there are positives to his approach and there are negatives to his approach. The positives are stability, understanding who you are, your identity, having those core values, and not wavering. The negatives are that you're not going to, most likely, while your floor has been set and you probably won't break through the floor, you also won't move the ceiling. And the formula is great defense. And I won't even go to the numbers on the defense. All you have to do is watch Iowa football. And I know roughly what the numbers are, but they have fielded top 15 defenses in the country. Again, I'm not going by statistics. I'm going by, they have one of the top 15 defenses in the country most of the time, and a top 15 special teams unit. And the turnover, and he's got to be given tons of credit for this, the ability to force turnovers and limit turnovers on offense consistently. And there is a randomness to that has been proven, but to overcome the randomness of that and be consistently near the top of the leaders for 20 plus years is pretty remarkable. But that's the formula, and that lifts a bottom 30 offense in the country to win 65% of your games. And in the last 5 years, more like 75% of your games.
Yeah, that was the only thing that I would pick with you on your comments last night, Mark. And maybe I misinterpreted what you said, but
yep.
you said that Iowa sort of has been on a sort of a plateau, but sort of falling down a little bit. From a record standpoint, they've went 10-3, 6-2, and 10-4. 10-2 in the regular season. So Iowa fans would say, well, with the exception of the COVID year, we only played 8 games. We've been winning double-digit games, and I don't know from a wins perspective if that would hold true. I think you could argue that it's kind of went up. I mean, just over the last 10 years, I can guarantee you that's the fact, minus 2015.
I was drawing that line, unless I'm mistaken about my own words and where I was, because I talked about 100 and some odd coaches. I was drawing that line from finishing 8th in the country 3 consecutive years in his first 5 years to now.
Yeah, and we all know the story. We hadn't won a Big Ten championship in 18 years. Never won an outright Big Ten championship. We that's all a fact. And I thought it was interesting the other night when you made a comment on one of your shows. And yes, for anybody who doesn't, I do listen to you when I'm not just here just trying to talk. I do listen to your programming, Mark. So I did hear you make a comment that you think it's ridiculous that fans or that schools hang banners for division championships. And it got me thinking, because I have no problem with hanging a banner. I think it's a really nice accomplishment. We celebrated when Iowa won the West this year, but I do think that just shows a difference in mindset. And we've talked about that. I called in and we talked about that, a week ago on one of your shows about, is Iowa really concerned? Is Kirk Ferentz really concerned with national success? We keep hearing him, he compares the record of Iowa's program over the past several years to the rest of the Big Ten. Is he concerned with getting to the playoff? I don't know that. I mean, again, my thinking on it is based on the moves that have been made, transfer portal, coaching hires, non-hires, that I don't really think that that's probably priority number 1, 2, 3, or 4. I think if it happens, great, but I don't think that's high on the list. And so I do think that has influenced my thinking on success. Right or wrong, I think that's probably the case with a lot of fans. I do think we've kind of become accustomed to just the goal is to win the West. I know not everybody can be Ohio State, but the goal is not to win the East for Ohio State. It's just not. It's just not right. It's to win a national championship. Is the goal even to win a Big Ten championship for Ohio State, Mark? Because I kind of doubt it is anymore.
That's on the way.
Sure, it's on the way. Yeah, absolutely. You're going to get to the college football playoff. You're probably going to win a Big Ten championship. But that I guess that my thinking on it is, I have not seen enough evidence that tells me that the staff is real concerned with getting to that next level. And that's what all the fans who are frustrated that I see in the chat, that I see comment on this channel and on my channel, that's what they're frustrated about, because they do see a defense who, like you said, top 15 year in and year out, a special teams unit, top 15 year in and year out, guys returning who could possibly elevate, if you had a good offense, elevate this program to something great. Charlie Jones is one of the best, I think, punt returners in the country. Torrey Taylor is one of the best punters in the country. We're not even scratching the surface on defense. And it seems like there's not as big of a concern from the Iowa program to make that offense at least decent to good, because they're that close, Mark. They're a good defense away from having a championship season.
And this has to be the frustration as well. And again, it's not my frustration, because I don't have investment in the program or the winning or losing. I'm just a football guy that enjoys the football. That unless I'm wrong, unless somebody can prove me wrong, you don't have to pay attention to one side of the football in detriment to the other side of the ball. So they don't have to sacrifice the special teams and defensive success by saying, let's fix the offense. And in doing so, when you continue to have those top 15 units, you have an opportunity now to have a great team and have a special season. And if for some reason, and it's going to happen, and I don't know, we would have to go back and you would be able to do this much more accurately and quickly than I would. The last time Iowa did not have a top 15 defense, when they just had a mediocre defense, well, then you were setting yourself up for 6-6, 4-8. How long ago has that been? It's not been that long. What,
10 years?
2013? Yeah.
12.
Yeah. In that range, 12. So if you're shooting yourself in the foot a couple different ways there.
And you could make the argument that that's not the case, Mark, with, say, basketball, for instance. Now, I know you have multiple assistants, but it's just a different sport. I mean, as I always bring up, and I know that kind of stating the obvious, but it really does come into play in this conversation. Football is three teams in one. And Brian's working, he's not touching the defense, nor should he. I mean, Phil Parker's not touching the offense, nor should he. LeVar Woods is focused on special teams. I mean, you have to evaluate each position, or each unit and each position completely individually. I mean, there's this idea that Iowa plays complementary football, and I've heard this too, Mark, that if Iowa changes its philosophies offensively, that it's going to hurt the defense. I think maybe there's a small tidbit of truth there to a degree. Like, you don't want to if you're just going spread and you're putting the defense in bad positions constantly, that's one thing. But I mean, heck, Iowa goes 3 and out all the time, Mark, and they're giving the ball back to the defense. I mean, the defense
is even better than what it shows us statistically.
Yes, because it's constantly put in it's constantly on the field. People don't realize that they're always on the field. I mean, let's just be honest. Torrey Taylor, I think did he lead the Big Ten in punts last year?